to go ahead and kick us off, before we jump in and take a look at a live demonstration, I think it might be worth giving you guys a little bit of a background on what exactly is the Girls' Rights Platform and what is our human rights database. So essentially, our platform began in 2017, and it was born out of our Girls' Rights or Human Rights report. The purpose of this report was to do an in-depth analysis of girls' rights and its visibility within international and regional policy and law documents. So we looked at over 1,300 documents in that specific report, which was published in English, French, and Spanish. And essentially the outcome was that girls' rights are rendered invisible. And that's really unfortunate. And with Plan having this niche focus on girls' rights, we said we need to do something about it. And so began the Girls' Rights Platform. It has various tools for it, which have been designed for various stakeholders. So we have the entire report available on our Girls' Rights Platform, available, as I said, in English, French, and Spanish. We have its executive summary. We have 2 subsequent fact sheets that have arisen out of the report. So there's a fact sheet on what exactly are girls' rights. We know it's quite niche, and we know it's not the easiest thing to explain to everybody. So it's a really useful tool. And we also have a fact sheet on reservations in international law, specifically related to girls' rights and gender equality. From there, we also have a 6-module girls' rights quiz. So each of the modules has a different theme. Our first one is general and is available to everybody. For the other 5, you would have to create an account. It's free. We don't bother you or spam you with anything. It's really just so that you can keep track of your progress in the quizzes. If you finish all 6 quizzes with over 90% correct answers in all of them, we will then give you a Girls' Rights Champion certificate from Plan International, which certifies that you know what you're talking about when it comes to girls' rights. And the entirety of our platform is available in English, French, and Spanish. And so that leads me to the last tool, which is what I'm going to be showing you today, is our human rights database. The original version of the human rights database was built off of the 1,300 policy and law documents that we had analyzed within our report. And since then, we were manually creating it, and we saw that there were quite a bit of issues. So in 2019, we decided to launch ourselves into the endeavor of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And after about a year of development, so actually in February of last year during the Human Rights Council, we were able to relaunch our human rights database with its 2nd version, which is what we're going to look at today and what we have existing currently. This version is largely driven by artificial intelligence and machine learning, which means that for us as Plan International, we are able to, let's say, reallocate our human resources to focus more on policy, to focus more on our activities and our programs. But for you all as users, what it means is that our analyses, our tagging, the data within the database itself is more consistent, it's up to date, and it's unbiased. It's been trained by a variety of persons with very, very different backgrounds. So they can be human rights backgrounds. We have people with technical backgrounds. So we really made this a broadly accessible tool for everybody, regardless of your background, experience, technical knowledge, etc. And the entirety of the database is available in 3 languages. So in all, we have over 22,000 documents available to you. And we have worked really hard to incorporate policymakers and diplomats throughout our design process of the human rights database. And we continue to do so as we improve on the database to make sure that it's intuitive for you, that it is user-friendly, and that it's accessible to those of any ability, and also in multiple languages. So with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and let's go ahead and take a look together. So I'm going to give it a minute just because we never know what anybody's connectivities are. So at this point, you should be seeing the Girls' Rights Platform page. So the Girls' Rights Platform can be found at girlsrightsplatform.org. And as I said, it's available in English, French, and Spanish, the entirety of the platform. We have tabs for the database, the resources where you can find the report, the quiz, a tab which keeps you up to date on our activities. So if we have trainings such as today's, if we have launch events, if we have demos available, this is where you'd find them. And we have a tab which gives you general history on the platform. Today's focus is the database. So there's a few ways you can get to the database. You can either get to it through the Girls' Rights Platform by clicking on this tab or on this image, or you can go directly to the database by going to database.girlsrightsplatform.org. After that, you can input whichever language you want, because as you can see here, we have the entirety of the platform in English, French, and Spanish. Now, when you come to the database, you're going to see that there's two ways to enter it. You can either directly enter it here. Let's say you have a search term that you're interested in, and considering the purpose of this training is really leading up to the Commission of Status of Women this year and its session. You can look up a keyword such as participation and empowerment of girls and women, ending gender-based violence, sexual violence, whatever key terminology you might want. But let's say you want to go in with a little bit more of a broad spectrum and you want to see what's available. What I would recommend is coming to this tab up here that says database. When you click on it, you're going to enter into the database in its entirety. What you'll see are these paragraph cards. Well, we call them paragraph and document cards. Now, just to explain a little bit what that means, all of the documents that we have available in our database have also been separated into their subsequent paragraphs. And this means that if you wanted to search for an exact piece of language, so you didn't want to find documents and then enter the document and then look through the paragraphs and go through pages and pages to see if maybe there's language that's useful, we've already separated the documents for you. So you can search by paragraph rather than by in whole documents. Now, the choice is entirely yours, and I'm going to show you how to use both today. So as I was saying, these paragraph or document cards have key information on them. So in this case, you can see it's document card as is labeled here. If it was paragraph, it would be blue and says paragraph. You have the title of the document, you have the name of the producing body, you have the year it was published, the document code, and the date it was added to our database. Now, for the purpose of this training, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through a real life example of what you might do if you were looking for previously agreed language or precedent language for the purpose of policy building. So when you come here to the right side, you'll see that we have a number of filters. So to start off, we have filters by document and paragraph. You can filter by document type, and you can filter by body. As I was saying, what we recommend is personally to filter by paragraph. It is a little bit easier if you're using the database for the purpose of looking for language, because as I said, you're not going to then have results which are entire documents, and then you have to comb through the documents themselves to see if they're relevant. So instead, you're going to get the exact paragraphs. So as you can see, and this is in English only, our database has over 8,000 documents available in English, which subsequently means that there's over 290,000 paragraphs available, which is a big number. This is a large database and it's consistently being updated. And while this number can be very overwhelming, what we've done is we've tailor-made filters to our users, so specifically for policymakers and diplomats, also advocates, civil society workers who would use this and using your rationales to create a filtration system which is really going to help you narrow down the results you want quickly. So as I said, we're starting off with over 290,000 paragraphs, which is quite daunting. But for the purpose of this training, which is leading up to CSW, what we can do is we can go ahead and filter by body. So let's say you want to see what has previously been said in CSW, agreed conclusions, what have they previously said, even if the topics are slightly different. So what you can do is you can click on this box here, Commission on the Status of Women, and you're already going to filter down from 293,000 paragraphs to about 3,500, which is a lot better already, but still quite a lot of information to go through. What I would then recommend, and some options that you have, you can filter by document type. So you can see CSW resolutions, you can see CSW agreed conclusions, or you can see both. You can see the means of adoption. So if there was a vote, if it was consensus. But in this case, something that may be useful to you all is the topics and persons affected filters. This is especially useful if you are focused on a specific group. So for this year, we know one of the themes is focused on participation of women and girls. So Let's say for our persons affected, and we have a list that makes sure that you can take an intersectional approach, which I'll speak on in a bit later. Let's say you want to focus on women and girls. So what you can do is you can click the box next to women and you can click the box next to girls. But I will caution you, there's a button over here that says and or. When you select multiple items from this filtering list, so right now the button is on or, it means that I'm looking for any result that has either the tag of women or girls. If you are looking for paragraphs that will have the tag of both, meaning the topic of the paragraph itself, the content of it refers to both women and girls, I would suggest that you click on this and move it over to and this is really where we find the intersectional approach within our tags. So for example, if you wanted to focus on young women, you would tag women and youth. Putting them together then gives you everything that talks about young women, women entering adulthood, women in their young adult life. So it finds that intersecting point. Similarly, you could do adolescent persons on the move. So you can look at adolescent girls on the move. So you can add adolescent girls and persons on the move. And there you go. You have the opportunity of creating these intersecting identities referring to a very specific group, which is of interest to you. For the purpose of this exercise, we are looking at participation of women and girls. So we've selected women and girls. Now, participation is a little bit more specific than what we have in our topics list, unfortunately. We've tried purposefully to keep the topics relatively broad, and we have based them largely on the SDGs. The purpose being that we want this to be accessible to anybody regardless of their area of work. So while we know that many persons within our sector have very, very specialized areas of work, we wanted to keep this broad. So participation, I would say, would be under governance and rule of law, but perhaps you interpret that a little bit differently. In a case like this, we of course have our search bar. Now, the beautiful thing about the Girls' Rights Platform Human Rights Database is that actually it was built in conjunction with engineers from Google, which means that our search engine actually functions quite similarly to the Google search engine. You can find here some search tips. They're a little bit complicated, but they make sense once you read them. They may seem overwhelming at first though. But the search tips will help you see the different ways that you can use our search bar. The easiest way, I would say, is if you're looking for a specific term, so in this case, let's say we're looking for participation, I would recommend that you place this term within quotation marks. It can be a term or a phrase. Placing a term or a phrase within quotation marks means that you're going to look for this exact term or phrase. It means that you're not interested in any related searches, you really just want this exact thing. So for example, if you were interested or working on sexual violence, in quotations, you can type sexual violence. If you are, however, if you're looking for something that's a little bit more broad and also includes related terms, if you search sexual violence without quotation marks, you would also get terms like domestic abuse, gender-based violence, assault. So you would get a more broad spectrum of terms that could be related. But as we know, sometimes we're looking for language on an exact term or phrase, or we want to see if there is precedent with an exact term or phrase. As we know, language changes quite often within our field, and we always have new emerging themes and concepts. So sometimes we need to check the precedent. In this case, we're going to look for participation. Now, already by adding the girls and women filters together, we've narrowed down from 3,500 to 1,400 results. However, that's still quite a bit of paragraphs. So let's add on participation and see how much we can narrow this down to. 202 paragraphs. So as you can see, when you search an exact word or phrase, you will have a little snippet of where the text actually appears. So let's say this was a particular point of interest for me, and it was quite relevant to the paragraph or the precedent language that I was searching for. In the case, which is often the case, that you want to bookmark this and you want to be able to come back and reference it, you can find at the top right-hand corner of the paragraph card, you have this little icon. And when you hover over it, it says add or remove the favorite. If you want to refer to this a little bit later and continue upon your research, perhaps change the search terms that you're looking for, but you want to be able to come back and reference this, add it to your favorites. You'll know it's added to your favorites once it turns pink. So it's quite obvious, and there's a little bit of a visual cue as well. When you click on a paragraph card, and I just want to quickly show you this, you see that you have more details than what is immediately available. So you have the full title of the document itself, as well as the paragraph number. You have the full paragraph text. You have information on the legal status of this document, on the body, on the document type, the means of adoption, what topics are identified within this paragraph, who were the persons affected referred to within this paragraph, the year it was produced, the paragraph type, if applicable, as well as a full reference to the document and paragraph itself, which we know is quite helpful. If you wanted to view it in full, you can always do that as you wish. And actually, with our paragraphs, we also have, let's say they're called connections. So if you view the paragraph in full, you can see the document it is linked to, which means that if you think that maybe there's more in that document, you can easily access it through the document or access other paragraphs related to this one. So there is a trickle down and there is a flow within your research. Now, let's pick 2 or 3 of these that we think are quite interesting to us. So we've tagged this one, we can bookmark that, perhaps, let's go a little further down. Okay, let's pick this one. Fantastic. So now we have some favorites that we've added that we want to refer to. We can change our search, and maybe we don't want to look at participation, but we want to look at empowerment. And let's see what it says. Now, when you search for empowerment, and it's taking a moment, I apologize, my Wi-Fi has been a little tired today. You can see that we have gone a little bit back up, but we're at 341 documents, and you have various results that may or may not have been the same ones that you saw before. So now let's go ahead and favorite a few of these. And what happens when you add them to your favorites is if you look up at the top, you have your favorites tab. And there's a really cool feature about the favorites tab within our database that I'm very excited to share with you guys. As you know, when you find precedent language that you want to build off of or that you want to use in reference for the purpose of creating policy drafts, you oftentimes will copy and paste it, and then you'll edit it, and then you'll copy and paste it into the draft document, and it can be a bit tiresome. What we've done is that when you favorite a paragraph, you can then edit the paragraph directly within the database. It doesn't mean that you're changing the actual results that other people are seeing, that other users are seeing, but it means for you, you have access to the reference itself and the possibility of creating language changes for your own personal reference directly in one spot. So what this means is, for example, if you want to work on the language that you have here, and you think that it's particularly important that there is reference to caste-affected women and girls, what you can do is you can select it, and anytime you select any text within the paragraph, you'll have the opportunity to bold, italicize, underline, and strike through. So let's say this is particularly important to you. You go ahead and you bold it. Or let's say you think that there is something that needs to be changed and you want to change the words domestic violence, but you feel that there also needs to be domestic abuse. Well, you can type in any changes you feel are necessary. You can also delete anything. And the purpose of this is really so that you can directly make the changes once you found them, everything is fresh in your mind, there's no need to copy and paste multiple times. And so what you do is you leave it and you can copy and paste this entire text. We've made sure that it's format friendly, which means if you copy and paste it into a Word document, it's not going to mess up all the formatting and take you a lot of time to go ahead and change it again. So you can copy and paste all of this into the documents that you are sharing with colleagues, and voila, you have the reference, you have the exact text, you don't need to worry about formatting, and you've already made the changes that you wish to. Another good thing is that if, for example, let's say your computer turns off, let's say your internet crashes, let's say anything happens and you lose this page, the Girls' Rights Platform Human Rights Database is going to go ahead and cache the favorites that you've had for up to 2 weeks. So if for any reason, you were to leave this page and then you think, oh no, I've lost all the references that I found during my research, don't worry, you come back on the same device, it's going to be here, and very easily accessible with the changes you've made saved as well. So there's no concern there. Now, there's a few other things on our database that I think could be of interest. So when you come to our analytics tab, these are analytics that were created specifically based off of Plan International's own positions. And so we found that within this database, there's quite a bit of information, and to further the research that had actually birthed our platform, so the information looking at an analysis of girls within international and regional policy and law documents, we decided we were going to produce 4 stories or 4 analyses of the data within it. So our first visual is a visual representation of when did we start talking about blank. The purpose of this is really to look at our topics that we have within the database and to look at the documents that we have in and of themselves to see when did a topic emerge within international and regional human rights discussions and documents, and how has it been doing since? Has it remained relevant? Has it had peaks? Has it had troughs? So one that we find particularly interesting for us as Plan International with our own interests is gender. So for example, we can see that gender was relatively not spoken of, but we can see that there was a huge jump in 1995, and we know that that was because of the Beijing +25 platform for action. Immediately after, it dropped, but we can see that it's been on a steady rise since then. Now, if your area of interest is not gender perspectives or the area of gender, perhaps your niche is environmental, you can look at the environment and see, have documents tagged with the topic of environment, have they been super relevant, have they had their peak moments? So you can see in 2011 they peaked quite a bit and they've stayed relatively high. You can look at topics like economic rights, governance and rule of law, water and sanitation, health, harmful practices. So there's quite a few topics for you to go ahead and comb through, and it's quite interesting to see the trends in these various ones. Next, we have a story of where girls are left in the shadows of women and children's rights. So one of our advocacy points as Plan International is that girls are often grouped in either with women or children, and it's very seldom that they're given the specific address where their context, their needs, and their specific barriers are taken into account. And so this visual represents how that is represented across various topics within these documents. So I would implore you guys to go ahead and take a look at this. And thirdly, we have representation of girls in topics. So we can see are girls spoken of more so in the context of education and less so in regards to political empowerment, so governance and rule of law? Are they spoken of more in the context of health and less so in regards to their civil and political rights? It's another interesting story. And lastly, we have how girls are represented in international and regional bodies. So these are just, as I was saying, these are analytics based off of Plan International's own position. And they do tell a story of an analyses that we have drawn on the database as a continuation of our report. So if this is of interest to you, or you think any of these topics could be of interest to you, I would implore you to go ahead and take a look, play around, and see what you think, because it could also inspire your own analyses from your point of view, your organization, your institution, and we're always happy to do so. Now, going back to the database, as I was saying, this is available in English, French, and Spanish. So if you're in the French version of the database and you want to do exact term or phrase searches, you can also do that in French. It's always going to work, and the same thing in Spanish. So the full functionalities are available in 3 languages. It's not just that the pages are translated. The functionalities work in the 3 languages as well. And just a little bit more in regards to information, we have 6 document types available within we have 12 document types, excuse me. We have 12 document types available within our database, and we have documents produced by over 52 bodies. As I was saying before, these are international and regional bodies. And so they are consistently being updated. We have, for example, the Council of Europe, we have the African Commission, we have the EU. So we have quite a few different options in regards to regional bodies. And this does act as a complement to the UPR info database, which you may be a little bit more familiar with. But our focus has particularly been with the producing bodies in New York and Geneva, who do not have their own databases and who do not have a database where all of their documents can be found in conjunction. And so with that, that was a very quick run through of how to use the database. I do want to let you all know that in the run-up to every Human Rights Council session, we have drop-in sessions. So in the case that you or your colleagues are interested to see this again, or see it for the first time, drop by for a refresher course, or you just recommend to colleagues to come and join us, you are always more than welcome, and you can always find the information on our Girls' Rights platform. And also to say that those sessions are done in English, French, and Spanish. So there's a little bit more accessibility open.